Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, sponsored by Membrain. This season, we're diving deep into the 3 T's of developing scalable sales organizations: talent, transformation, and technology. We're bringing together sales leaders from around the world to help you elevate your organizations and crush B2B revenue goals. So smash that like button, subscribe, and ensure you don't miss an episode.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're co-hosted by Zach Bauer, and we're talking with the first guy I know that coined the term dead presidents and taillights. We'll get into it. It's an awesome story. Tom Starck is the guy we're talking to, and his journey is unique. He's gone from professional athlete to a top sales performer in motorsports, and ultimately a sales leader for large growing teams across the nation. Now he's a practice partner at SalesStar, and he helps executives boost sales and profitability. He's passionate about building high-performance teams, and he leads with authenticity. So in today's episode, we're diving into Tom's approach to connecting with customers, leading with passion, and why being genuine is key to success in sales. You're going to love this one, so let's jump right in.
Mr. Tom Starck, welcome. Welcome. How you doing, man?
I am fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Very excited to have the chat here.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm pumped to have you as well. And we're joined by an amazing guest and co-host as well, Zach Bauer. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks. Happy to be here too.
And quite honestly, we're going to have to dive into this right away because the phrase dead presidents and taillights has come up in some of our conversations. And we got to talk about, you guys share some history in sales. And so we got to talk about that. And we got to talk about how you kind of came up in sales, Tom, before we really dive into the meat of this. So why don't we get in and start there? Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what the heck is this phrase, dead presidents and taillights?
Yeah, glad to do it. Thank you. So dead presidents and taillights, one of the first lessons I learned. So I've got a couple experiences that I think are critical for almost anybody early career as far as setting you up to have a little bit of empathy and know and understand how to interact. And both of those are retail related and related to the story. So I had a short career as a professional athlete. And in order to give myself time to continue to work out during the off season, but still make a little bit of money, I was waiting tables and bartending. I think that's actually sets a fantastic foundation for sales and relatability and, just the ability to interact and try and build trust early on. And I think that you learn a lot about interacting with people. I took that over to a retail experience. I actually got recruited out of the bar and restaurant I was at to come work at a motorcycle dealership. Had an interest in motorcycles. It was kind of late in life. I got into motorcycles in college. Really made some bad decisions in buying my first bike and not having much experience and riding it home. Yeah, the Cliff Notes version is, I think I had about 45 minutes to an hour's worth of experience riding a motorcycle around a parking lot. I learned how to operate the clutch and operate everything just fine. I was on a very small little motorcycle. And then I was committed and I went and bought a bike about 45 minutes away from home. And my second experience on a motorcycle was riding that thing home. So thankfully, nothing bad happened. That was an uneventful experience, but probably not the brightest one. Yeah. So, without any knowledge or predetermined course of action, waiting tables and bartending led me to working in a motorcycle dealership and working in retail. And that took the next 11 years of my life in retail on the power sports dealership. But dead presidents and taillights specifically was one of the first lessons that my general manager imparted on me. He was a wonderful guy. I learned a lot about leadership from him, but it was real easy to get excitable by nature, but it was real easy to get excited when somebody come in and start talking about a bike. And I was convinced that they were going to come back and they were going to buy. And at the ripe young age of late 20s, somewhere in that ballpark, mid 20s, late 20s, I was ready to spend the commission check before they ever hit. And I was taught very early on, nothing happens till dead presidents and taillights. So it's both, right? It's not a deposit. That's not a commitment. It is finalized deal and the bike riding down the road. And that lesson, I am embarrassed to admit how often I've had to refer back to dead presidents and taillights and how often that lesson's been reinforced in my life. So Zach's nodding. He's experienced it as well, I believe.
Yeah, you can't be selling tickets to the Be Back bus because the Be Back bus never comes back.
The Be Back bus never comes. You know, the beautiful thing about the motorcycle industry, and I don't know if you had this, Zach, but we had a lot of car guys. And car guys, man, they've got some of the best sayings, right? And some of those, and again, dead presidents and taillights, I'm sure came from one of the car guys, but they stick with you. And they're still great lessons and valid in everything that we're still doing to this day.
I think I'm going to take Zach. I've never heard can't sell tickets to the B-Back bus. I'm now officially that's added into my repertoire. So Zach, tell us, how did you learn that? Where were you at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I fell into motorcycle sales kind of in a similar fashion, really, like halfway intentional, but halfway by accident, right? Because I always had aspirations of working for Harley Davidson in some capacity, and ended up selling them for a while. But that was always a big thing for me was learning that you need to have that commitment. It needs to be a sealed deal, and they need to be riding down the road before it really even means anything, because it's so easy to get caught up in the excitement. We call it happy years in a lot of cases, right? Like they're ready. They've got maybe a big settlement check coming through or whatever. And oh, great. They're going to be a millionaire. They're going to buy a bike and everything's going to be good. I can't tell you how many times I heard stories like that. They disappear, into the ether, never to be heard from again. But just having that commitment and having it done is so important.
Well, Dave Curlin talks about it in a big way around healthy skepticism, right? How to be just an absolute skeptic, especially when you're in deals where people get so excited about the stuff. So how do you learn to do that? Like, you're in motorcycle sales, you're in auto sports, you're in, these are just sexy sales that you're making. How do you learn to really follow a process and get a signature on the line that is dotted, the 16 digits on the credit card or whatever it may be? How do you hold yourself to that?
Yeah, for me, with sales being the transfer of enthusiasm and working in an enthusiast realm, it was real easy to go 90% of the way, right? And just get people fired up and create a conversation, especially early in the sales career. For me anyway, I had to learn to close. And I know that you can look at this thing a million different ways, and closing can be a dirty word and things of that nature. But it took me a little while to realize I was doing my customers and prospective customers a disservice by not asking them to complete the transaction. And I'll never forget, and I use this in sales meetings consistently as I advanced into leadership and advanced through my career. I'll never forget, again, young kid, had a little bit of commission money, right? And I wanted to put a stereo in my Jeep at the time. Mm-hmm. And I went to Best Buy and I talking to some guys who were walking through the process. And all I wanted somebody to do is say, this is what you need. This head unit, these speakers, it's going to sound great. I had my credit card ready to go. Like I just wanted to pull it out of my pocket and hand it to somebody. I couldn't find anyone to do that. And I'll tell you, that experience, I left incredibly frustrated. Now, I didn't take any additional action, right? I didn't go say, I want to spend the money. I went through the process and nobody asked for the sale. Nobody tried to close. Nobody said, I have the solution for you. Let's go ahead and get this done. And I left frustrated. And that lesson stuck with me forever. And again, gets repeated consistently in sales meetings. Asking for the close, what's the worst that your customer can do? They're not ready. They're going to say no, right? But if you don't ask for their business, if you don't give them the clear path to realize their vision, which in this case, in the motorcycle industry, was getting out and riding and making friends and being part of it, sometimes they won't ask, right? They're not going to take you by the hand and ask you how they can spend the money. So yeah, I think it was a progressive just learning, and then again experiencing it on the other side was really powerful.
But let's take that lesson itself. What are some of the keys? How do you transfer that lesson? And it is not always be closing, right? But you need to at some point give your customers that you're responsible for making that ask, and then telling them how we move forward together. How do you translate that skill into the B2B world?
I think it's just that, right? I think so much of everything, whether we're going to talk sales or leadership, boils down to effective communication. And if you're the expert You're the one representing your product or service, interpersonal sale or business to business. It doesn't matter, right? 85% of these purchasing decisions are still made emotionally. You're the expert. You have to not only be the expert in the product, you have to be an expert in the process, right? To be an expert in the process, that means that as you're picking up on buying signals or you're getting agreement, you're transferring that enthusiasm, you have to lay out that roadmap, right? And it's super easy to do. And we all know this and we all hear about, kind of the soft close opportunities, and it's not aggressive and it's not disingenuous. And again, to me, you're doing your prospect or your potential customer a disservice by not laying out what the process looks like and leading them along. I don't know that it's any more complex than that, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Zach, what do you think on that? I mean, he seems like he's speaking our language.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting to kind of dissect a little bit. The emotional part of it, we don't always consider in the business side of things. At least it's harder for me to think about things in an emotional context, selling business solutions versus something like a motorcycle. And I think it's so important to think about, though, how do you create that emotional connection? Because when you're selling a motorcycle, you're not selling logic, right? There's no logical reason in the universe to buy something on two wheels that has a ton of horsepower, right? It's all about the fun. It's all about the excitement. On the flip side, you almost have to reverse engineer that to some degree, right? Because you're starting with the logical reason that you might purchase a software solution, for example, and then it's going to result in some kind of emotional outcome. Where on the other side, sort of reversed. I don't know. I'm curious your take on that and how you approach that, Tom, in driving that emotion and making that, a focus of the process, if you will.
Feels like we may be foreshadowing where we're going, but to me, it still becomes being authentic and being authentically involved and invested in your prospect or client's journey, right? So honestly, Zach, and I understand and respect the differences, but it's still the transfer of enthusiasm, right? You guys, Membrain has a phenomenal product. I've got a phenomenal service. I believe fully in that. I'm incredibly enthusiastic and passionate about that. And, obviously as we go through discovery and we find out that my solution or your solution aligns well with the client's needs, we can overcome the pain and things of that nature. Like, that gets me excited. That gets me genuinely excited. And I look to connect. It's not that the passion and the exchange of that passion and enthusiasm really isn't that dissimilar from getting somebody out on two wheels and having an experience and enhancing their life, right? On the recreational side. We're going to paint things a little bit differently. We're going to look to show an ROI. We're going to look to make sure that we're bringing an appropriate amount of value to the business. But if we've done our job on the front side and asked the right questions and gotten involved in the right conversations, we know we're the expert. We know what our solutions are. We know what we can solve for. And when there's alignment there, yeah, I mean, it's still a passionate conversation to me. It's still a conversation where I'm invested in the fact that I know I've got something that is going to help make this business better. It's going to help make them grow. And I'm going to look to transfer that passion to the prospect and hope that we're able to see this thing through and then watch that vision, come to reality over time, which is obviously the most rewarding part of the whole thing.
And let's talk about that, because let's dive in. We're going to talk a little bit about your transformation and how you continue over time and your walk into leadership, and then ultimately, running your own company. But that authentic excitement, I think, is impossible to fake. And I've had this discussion across tons and tons of organizations and people and that type of stuff. I do think it's impossible to fake. Like, it is, you can pretend all you want, but unless we sell similar stuff in that we invest in our technology, and your services both are investing in a company to help them drive more effective revenue on an ongoing basis. If we can't get pumped about that, to be able to drive change in people's lives, to be able to drive uptick in their ability to live and feed their families and that type of stuff, that's where it gets real, right? And that's, to me, where the logic and the emotion connect. It's an interesting thing that not all the buyers see it that way. And that to me actually screams disconnection from my ideal client profile, right? It's love working with the people that are just super excited about, okay, how can we transform this together? And how can I give my teams the best things that they need to go out and be successful? And when they get pumped about it, it just fires me up. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. So do you think you can manufacture, like, talk about that a little bit. Do you think you can manufacture that emotion on their side, or how do you work to really help somebody get excited and get motivated to drive themselves forward into change?
I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? As far as your ideal client needs to be seeking to improve, needs to be looking to invest in tools or services that are going to help their team perform better, needs to be self-actualized enough to realize that it's inefficient for them to either do it all on their own, work through Excel or whatever it may be. So I don't view sales as manipulation, right? It's impossible. We can't make anybody do anything. So I think you're right, Paul. I think that if you don't have somebody that has the ability to get excited about what you can offer, they're probably just not the right client. And they might be the right client at some point in time. They might just not be the right client right now. They might not be in the right headspace, whatever it may be. And, there's no harm in parting as friends and working to find ways to revisit as the time comes up. But I would rather 100% of the time would rather get somebody that has the vision, sees the vision, knows where we're going, and can get excited about it, than try to drag somebody into it. You try and drag somebody into it, they're going to be problematic, right? They're going to be continually looking for issues within your process or an area where you don't deliver the value that you said you were going to do. They're always going to be trying to shoot holes in whatever it is that you end up partnering on, as opposed to getting excited and kind of being solution oriented, right? And being invested in where they're going and how you fold into that. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because we want to help everybody. I think that's inherent in sales, especially if you've got a product or service that you truly believe in. But yeah, the value of disqualifying, if you've got somebody who can't quite get there and can't get there emotionally and isn't invested in what you've got on an emotional level, you probably just don't have the right client, or they're maybe not in the right space to have that conversation at the time.
Well, let's take this into your journey over time from a part-time professional athlete or a professional athlete, and we hold something in common there. You were a professional athlete for a short time. I was a professional athlete for no time, so maybe that's in. But no, that's really cool that you got to do it. But let's take that journey. Radical disqualification. You just talked about disqualification and ICP and radical without mentioning it. That's what you did. How did you personally work to transform yourself from kind of like out of school, out of athletics, and into that top performer? Like, what were some of the critical areas of that?
Yeah, that's a fun little train of thought. And I know I stopped my career at motorcycle salesperson. So you might have people listening thinking, wow, this guy sold motorcycles and I have no idea why I'm listening to him at this point in time. But I think that it's fundamental, right? I think that the retail experience, and even if I'm honest, the experience in the service industry, were fundamental to helping build empathy. But those were layered on to, again, something that was fundamental for me personally in my development, which was an athletic career primarily based in team sports. So both an individual athlete and a team athlete. Through college, I was always focused on team success. It was just more rewarding to me to understand and know my role and see it benefit my team. And for me, my sport was football. I was lucky enough to coach for a couple of years, and I was lucky enough to work with some phenomenal mentors that taught me the value of servant leadership, taught me how to pour into my teammates as a player and as a captain, and then how to pour into my position unit as a collegiate position coach. I think those experiences, they coupled up 100% set the blueprint for everything that happened afterwards, right? The motorcycle journey, found myself as a top performing salesperson, just really based on hustle and the fact that I was in a seasonal market, which I think Zach understands as well. I was in the upper Midwest. trying to make a living in a commission in an industry that was exclusively based on commission. So I had to hustle, right? You got to work hard when the time comes and when the opportunities present themselves. That said, my focus always remained on the team and the health of the store. I had a broad enough perspective. I was gifted. I really think through my athletic background to know and understand how my contributions led to the overall success of the team. That led to sales manager and ultimately a general manager role within that dealership. I came down and ran another dealership for a little while and then pivoted to the wholesale side, still in the power sports industry for my first couple manufacturing experiences, but the same pathway played out. Individual contributor, high performing individual contributor, did what I needed to do, but always consistently invested in my success, and then it invested in the success of my team, and then that led to a little bit of recognition, which allowed me to get into a leadership role, and then again, pour into my team and invest in seeing them advance. And, it's a really cool thing to see people that were on my team in a very individual contributor, in an individual contributor role, replace me or go outside. And I've got account managers that are now national directors of sales with different organizations that, I've seen flourish and seen grow. So I think that athletic background and that coaching background is what really helped. And again, even as I got out of the power sports industry, which I haven't been in the power sports industry for over a decade now, the same things played out, right? I would get in, I would perform, but I would really be invested in the team and making sure that I'm communicating to the team and seeing their growth and pouring into them. And I continued to find leadership opportunities because of that. I didn't know how uncommon some of that was. And this isn't to pat myself on the back and say that I think I'm uncommon. I was just exposed to phenomenal coaching and mentorship at a level that most aren't. I don't think that we're rife with bad people or people that don't care about their teams or don't care about how to lead effectively. I think corporate America is filled with a lot of people that just don't know how and how to best do that. And I was lucky to have had some formative experience that helped me get there.
Break it down for us real quick. I heard a number of things there. So when you're talking about that leadership and that individual coaching and mentorship, what are the core parts of that really drive that focus and that ability to execute as a team?
I mean, I think a significant percentage of it is still just who you are at your core and how much you can care about pouring into others. I think the other two components that are critical are, one, you have to understand your role. And I mean that across the board as an individual contributor, as a leader, or even the top of the org chart. And you have to understand how the roles, every role underneath, folds into it. And you have to be able to trust people to do their jobs. So, and then I think the third component, and maybe the most important, probably the most important, because if you understand your role and you care about people, but you can't communicate or you can't deliver a message or clearly articulate a vision, then how are you going to hold anybody accountable? How are you going to demonstrate that you're pouring in? How are you going to know where people want to go and know and understand their motivations? So the third, and again, I think probably the most critical component of all of it is just being an effective communicator. I'm always taken by the quote, and I'm really bad at giving quotes verbatim, but something to the effect of the single biggest illusion regarding communication. The single biggest issue with communication is the illusion that it's happened or taken place. You can clean that up because I'm sure I've got it wrong. But so many leaders think that they've communicated a vision. So many leaders think that they've communicated goals. And I think that we've all found, and this is obviously a massive impact that the right technology can help solve for. But I think that you find that when you go a level or two away from that leader, that vision is lost. The goals are lost. And you get to an individual contributor role. And how do I know if I'm doing my job to help execute on the vision, help execute on my portion of the vision? You need effective leadership, you need effective communication, and ideally effective tools to be able to tie that all together. And I think that's where a lot of leadership is lacking. Is really in that communication and also the tools and the utilization of them.
I just did a recent webinar with a really good friend of mine and Zach's as well. His name is Walter Crosby, but he echoed a lot in that webinar about what you just said there. He just said it a different way, which is the webinar itself was on accountability. And he said, for the most part, you have people trying to create accountability, but failing miserably simply because of a lack of definition of what the accountability is for and the lack of communication relative to that. So, for example, when Zach and I work together, like, we need to get down to really the specifics, what ties that together. And so that's where I find the tools really help. But also when you talk about that heart, right? Being able to translate that heart and your heart for others, and to be able to translate that effectively into that vision, and then actually I'm accountable for and you're accountable for is really, really game changing. So I'm going to ask you both on this one. So that's the framework, but how do you do that authentically as Tom Starck, right? How do you do that as Zach? Because you both have the same leadership heart, right? How do you do that with the heart of a leader, showing that you care and driving that through organizations? Because that seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with. They just either focus on numbers or tasks or those type of things. They don't focus on what they call the fluffy stuff and the heart side. So, Tom, I'll point that to you, and Zach, I'd love your feedback on that as well.
Man, I was hoping you were going to go to Zach. I've been talking a lot. Can we let Zach?
You can interrupt Zach if you want.
No, that's fine. I'll take it. I don't know. I'll be the first to admit that's something that I still struggle with, like daily. Right? Is how do you focus more on the people aspect of it and get better at the communication? And Paul, I've expressed this to you too. So it shouldn't be a surprise, but focusing on the numbers and the activities and all those things has always been, I guess, my focal point, right? And it's difficult to step back from that sometimes and focus on those other, what you call that, the fluffy stuff for me. But I'm aware of it, right? And it's very helpful to have someone like you in my corner, to bring that out and highlight those things. I guess that's all I can say on that.
Well, it's so easy to get caught in, and it's really not. I had another great conversation. Tom, you'll know these guys. They're down in your neck of the woods. Daryl Amy and Larry Levine, like, they have the selling from the heart movement, which is it is nothing around. I said fluffy. It's not fluffy. Right? There's nothing fluffy about it. That ability to connect with somebody goal to goal, heart to heart, vision to vision is really, really important while you're still able to connect on the numbers. And you do that now for a living, Tom. I mean, that's what you do with SalesStar. And that's what you're doing every single day. So how do you make that a reality?
Yeah, so SalesStar, obviously, we work on transforming sales for organizations. So for me, to kind of bring that full circle, right? As it is now, I've got a great team that supports me. I've got teams that get out and support my accounts, and our culture is amazing for just fostering communication internally. But this is what we're really trying to bring to the forefront of the organizations that we serve, is the idea of helping their frontline salespeople be better at asking questions, uncover needs, and get to where they know whether their solution is right. So we're really, transforming the conversation from the show up and throw up and get out and talk about features and benefits right away, which, by the way, part and parcel with the automotive industry and the motorcycle industry. That's what I thought sales was right away, was features and benefits. But as I dissected it and looked back on that experience, right, even then we're tying that to, in that case, a retail transaction, and trying to find out what people's goals and aspirations are. For Zach, or for the Harley guys, maybe if they want to join a hog chapter and get out and go on group rides or whatever, you're listening to all of these things and trying to paint the vision of where they can go, and then you're tying it back to features and benefits. But I think, again, without making it all about me, this was a little bit of dumb luck for me. I went into college as a chemistry major, loved science, and all of a sudden I was like, man, that is a lot of math. So let's find something that still utilizes the scientific process, because that excites me, and take it a different direction. And I ended up with a psychology degree, so I ended up in a soft science, right? And you spend 5 minutes on LinkedIn and you're learning about emotional IQ and EQ and things of that nature is one of the things that are as some of the aspects of leadership that are lacking. So for me, I was again fortunate that I studied it, and then you pair that with leadership and things of that nature. So for us, as we go out and we get into organizations, right, that's really what I want to talk to business owners or sales leaders about, is how to continue that evolution. Zach, you're one of many, I would say, in the world, and maybe even well ahead of anybody, because you're self-actualized enough to know that, like, hey, I'm steeped in the numbers and I understand how the numbers contribute, and I'm aware that I need to continue to work on pouring into the people and having those conversations and making sure that I have effective communication. Got a lot of leaders out there that are nowhere near getting to that acknowledgement, I don't think. And where we are is we end up working with those that are in a similar space, right? That are interested and sort of realize that there's maybe a hole in their journey that they can fill in by bringing us in to kind of help them learn to effectively lead their team, to pour some effort and resources into educating their team and teaching them to be consultative and to ask questions and know and understand what problems they're trying to solve, as opposed to getting out and just puking about all of the wonderful virtues that they're incredibly enthusiastic about, right? But they haven't, I think that we talk often about having not earned the right or not really, built up a little bit of a relationship to get out and start talking about all the problems they're going to solve if they don't ask the questions and if they just come out talking about the benefits. Paul, I think it's probably the fifth or sixth monologue I've just went on there. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but I promise I tried.
Well, no, you did great. I'm going to bring it back. And there's an interesting thing that I'm going to take from your football. This is more my interpretation of what you just said, I think, than anything else. But to be able to care enough about somebody and to care about their future and what they want, to be able to force the change that's not force, but heavily influence the change that's needed, even though it's highly uncomfortable for you. So, for example, you're out there and you're making kids run wind sprints or that type of stuff. You know that this is beneficial for their long-term health. It's beneficial for them now. It's beneficial for them to bond as a team. And you're watching them all just absolutely be in pain, right? And the goal is you want them to be the absolute best. We're going to do more than we did last week or something along those lines. But that's a hard skill to bring. And I think it's a hard skill to bring to sales and transformation. But I hear you bringing it in what you're saying. When you say you got to care enough about somebody to really truly dive in and understand what the heck is going on in their life, so you then are obligated, if you can help them, to go out and help them and to train yourself to do that. That to me is the same skill set, right? And you do that with a team, you do it as a leader, you do it with coaches, you do it with the sell. I just think it's fascinating. So when I hear you talk about bringing your authenticity to it, I hear that vein through the whole thing. Am I missing that, or am I on point?
No, man, I love it. And I guess I hadn't quite thought of it in the way that you just described it, but let's give away a dirty little secret of coaching. Every single team, everywhere, regardless of the sport, is going to believe that they've worked harder than everybody else. Right, especially if they've got a good coaching staff. You can't quantify that. There is no way to prove that you've worked harder, done one more sprint, done any additional conditioning than your opponent, but you believe it, right? And that's when you're going through that together. This is again one of the team aspects that I love. When you're going it together in football, you're seeing your brothers go through it, and you're watching them work hard. It pushes you to work harder. Pushes you to do your job. You learn to trust your teammates to do theirs. And that's really no different, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's much different, if I'm honest, than somebody taking the journey in transformation with our company, right? They're not the first organization that's ever decided to go through transformation, but they're the ones that we're in front of. They're the ones that are investing. They're the ones that are putting in the work that their competitors aren't. And you know what? It is probably true. in that case. If you're counting on an internal team to handle soup to nuts, everything for your organization, you're probably missing some opportunities, right? You're probably getting at some point in time either a little bit of tunnel vision, target fixation. Zach will like, right? Wherever your eyes go, a motorcycle is going to go, but that's true for everything in life. And we get steeped in this thing and we kind of can't see the forest through the trees. So that same concept comes up for me in transformation, that if you're investing, you're getting a leg up, and all of that matters. That matters in how you present. That matters in the conversations that you have. That matters in your mindset as an expert and the value that you bring to getting out and having conversations with your customers or your prospects or whatever it may be. So again, I'm going to equate it to we believed we're the best conditioned team on the planet by design. As a coach, the teams believed that by design. It made them work harder and fight harder. It made them more confident late in games. It made them more confident when something would go wrong, that they had the tools to get out and overcome and continue to perform and find a way to get through and come out victorious. And again, all of this is kudos to the coaches that were in my life and the mentors that I was, exposed to. But it's the same thing that you want to pour into your teams, I believe. It's the same thing you want to do professionally. I want the organizations that I'm working with to feel that they have a better skill set, to feel that they know better how to interact, what questions to ask, how to deliver the right solution than any of their competitors. It makes them incredibly confident going into conversations. And I think, again, it allows them to transfer the energy, create a connection, and hopefully help their business grow and help their clients' business.
That's awesome. I think there's a nail, there's a head, and you hit the nail on the head. I got to get rid of that one. That's coming so out of this freaking podcast. Like,
I implore you to leave it, please. Vulnerability is key. Come on.
Yeah, vulnerability is key. All right, I'm leaving it, Zach. We're leaving it. That was like, all right. Yeah. What the heck? You get that thought in your head and you're like, yeah, this is going to sound great. No, hell. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And no AI is ever going to spit that out, Paul.
Exactly. This is authentic. It may be shit, but it's authentic.
So
we took it from dead presidents and taillights to nails kind of on heads. Tom, how do people get in touch with you if they want to work with you more or hear more of your story? And yeah, how do they get in touch?
Yeah. The easiest way is through SalesStar, right? So email is tom.starck@salesstar.com. You can find me on our SalesStar website and you can request to connect. So a lot of different ways. The website is www.salesstar.com. Direct email, direct outreach is obviously going to be the most effective. But yeah, would love any continued conversation on this topic. If it hasn't come through, these are topics that I do get incredibly excited about, and there's nothing more rewarding than. And Paul, I should apologize. Actually, you got me off of a Thursday and Friday transformation, so I had a phenomenal client engagement at the end of last week. So I'm still kind of under the ether from knowing that we're going to deliver transformational results for my most recent client, and surely that probably came through. Might be a little obnoxious, but man, I'd welcome the opportunity to continue the conversation.
It's fantastic.
It's not obnoxious at all. Passion is never obnoxious. It's never. So let's get after it. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming on. Zach, thank you as well for coming on, sharing your story. And if you guys got to get together to ride, and maybe we'll have we should have like a sales motorcycle gang. Like what you can put something on the back, like Revenue Hogs or something like that.
That's the stuff documentaries are made out of.
There you go. We're just at the beginning of that. So hashtag Revenue Hogs, hashtag Shine Bright. I don't even know why I'm saying hashtag. Have an amazing day, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in on another great episode of the Art and Science of Complex Sales. Please reach out if you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything that we can do to help you, and keep shining bright. Thanks so much, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Art and Science of Complex Sales.
Please take a moment, like, subscribe, share this podcast on all your favorite platforms, and let's get the word out. This podcast is proud to be brought to you by Membrain.com. We are the world's top B2B sales platform. And in the world of B2B sales, with everything from prospecting to business acquisition to managing complex growth, Membrain has the right size technology for your sales team. Our latest innovation, the Coaching Cockpit, empowers your leaders, managers, and team with the information and tools they need to take their skills to the next level and to take advantage of the exponential power of effective sales coaching. With our technology and the top team of sales partners around the world, Membrain is helping to achieve our driving vision. This is, quite simply, elevating the sales profession. To learn more, find us at www.membrain.com. That is MEMBRAIN.com, or contact us via email at sales@membrain.com. Keep shining bright and have a wonderful day.